Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Want to make sure that everybody able to be signed in. We'll just give it one more minute before we begin, one more moment, as we do have a lot of material to cover in the hour. Okay. Like I said, we have a lot of material to cover, so I'd like to begin. Looks like everyone's logged in right now. So this is the Report Designer Intermediate Training Webinar, formerly known as AutoTag. Today is Wednesday, May 16th, 2018. My name is Eric Johnson, and I will be your Windward training facilitator today. I'm a technical support engineer here at Windward Studios. I've been here for a little over 6 months now. Maybe you have interacted with me through help desk tickets. You may have noticed that when you logged into the GoToMeeting webinar, you have a toolbar. The arrow that you see on the screen is put into the raise your hand icon. So if any time during the webinar you have a question or experience in technical difficulties, please feel free to click that button to ask your question or notify me of anything that's wrong. The prompts that I have for questions in chat are on my other screen, so I may not see a question immediately. Usually I wait until the Q&A session at the end to answer questions, but I'll look now and again to see if anything has been raised. Again, this is the Intermediate AutoTag Training webinar. We're assuming that you've built some templates. They could have been very simple templates, that you've installed AutoTag, that you know how to use tags, that you know how to connect to your data sources, you know enough about AutoTag to get you started. And you may have joined us last week for the basic AutoTag training webinar. For the machine I'm working on today, I'm using Windows 10 operating system, which is 64-bit. I'm also using Office 2016, also 64-bit. And the version of AutoTag that I'm using is 15.2.279.0. And this is the latest release that we have out there. And if you'd like, you can go to our downloads webpage to download this latest version. Okay, I want to give you a high-level overview of what we'll be discussing today. I will go over some advanced features of the for each tag. We'll discuss conditionally formatting, covering two types of conditional formatting. One, showing and hiding content using AutoTag tabs, and a second type that formats output based on conditions. We'll go over the equation editor, where I'll show you how to add the sum function to a template. We'll discuss the if and switch tags and what the differences are. And I'll show you an example of the import tag. And of course, there's the Q&A session at the very end. So the for each tag, let's review what it actually does. It does three things. First, it grabs a set of data, any set of data that you want to pull from your data source. Secondly, it loops through that set of data that you selected to work with. And third, it repeats all the elements between the beginning and ending tags. I'll show you the importance of where to place the beginning and ending for each tag and show you the results of placing these tags in different ways. We'll also get into grouping data or nesting for each tags, and I'll show you how to group your data with nested for each tags. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and open up a blank Word document. Okay, let me expand this. Okay, to begin with, let's go ahead and look at the samples button, which can be found under either the auto tag or the auto tag manager tab. So I'm going to go ahead and open this, which opens up our getting started guide. This getting started guide contains a lot of information. We get some step-by-step, some tutorials, but today where we're going to focus is under this sample template section, specifically under this additional section. So we have tag tutorials for SQL and XML. We don't have the JSON tutorials yet. It is something that we'll be working on. But for today, we're going to be focusing on the SQL. So with this selected, let's go ahead and discuss this for each tag sample. I'm going to click on this right here. And for any tag that you use in auto tag, we do have samples for you. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this for each tag sample. Okay, and we're going to focus on this first sample right here, this for each tag without a table. It is possible to use the for each tag without a table. Yes, yes it is, as you can see from this example right here. It is also possible to use the for each tag with the table, which you may have seen in the basic training, and you can also see down here. But what I want to point out in this upper example is two things. One, where you place the beginning and the ending for each tag, and two, why the placement is important when you loop through the data. So before we do anything else, I want to go ahead and select this for each tag, come up to the auto tag tab and click on preview just to see the data that we're working with. And I'm always clicking preview. I always want to know what data I am working with. So for this, for each tag, we're returning everything from the categories table. We got the category ID, the category name, the description, and the picture. Excuse me. And close this. Now, what is the alt tag that's right next to this for each tag returning? I'm going to go ahead and select it. I'm up here, preview it again. Okay, so now for this alt tag, we're just going to be pulling the category IDs from this categories table. And now what's this last alt tag that I'll be doing? Select it, preview, and this last alt tag is going to be displaying the category name from the categories. And here you can see beverages. So yep, yes, we are displaying what I like to see here. So good, so looks good. And then we have our end for each tag right below, right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click output to show you what this report will look like. Split the screen. All right. So scroll this down a little. You'll notice here that we're just showing the category ID, a dash, and the category name. And each one of these categories is ending up on a different line. How is this actually happening? Why is it inserting this new record on a separate line? Well, let me go back to the template, which is over here on this left side, and show you. So the reason why we added the end for each on the next row is so that we could have the records displayed on a second line. Now, if I go up here to the Home tab, and if I turn on Show Hiding Format, you can see more closely what's happening. So right after this last alt tag, there is this paragraph marker. So we're providing a carriage return after the alt tag, so we can add the end for each right here, just below it. So what happens if we took away this carriage return? Let's remove it and place this end for each tag right after the final alt tag, like so. What will the output look like now? Go up to Auto Tag, click Output, say yes to save, split the screen again. Remember, templates on the left, outputs on the right. Now, the output looks very different, as you can see here. So before we had top-down list, but now we have it going across the page. So right after this first beverages category name, we have the number 2. There isn't even a space. Immediately after this first record, it begins the second record. Then when it gets to the end of the margin, it goes on and carries on to the next line. And it will continue this across the page and down the page. So this is why it's lining up on the exact same line for each one of these categories, because we remove this carriage return. By doing that, it is just going to display everything between here. And as there's nothing after the out, we're going to just go back and display the next record. Let's go ahead and change this back. All right, so this is why it's important where you place the end for each tag. So everything between this for each tag and end for each tag, everything right here, including this paragraph marker, is being repeated each time it iterates through the for each loop. Okay, before we move on, I'd like to point out this tag tree button. So I'm going to go ahead and click it up here in the Auto Tag tab. And this opens up the tag tree on the right. This is a very helpful tool, especially when you're reviewing templates that you haven't seen before. It lets me know all the tags that are in the template. So I'm going to go ahead and expand this main story. So the main story is for the main document. Now, if I had tags within my header or footer, those tags would display separately here in the tag tree. You would see a header, main story, and footer. But since I only have main story tags, we only see the main story right now. And these are all the for each tags that are listed within this document. And the cool thing about this is that if I click on any one of these tags within the tag tree, it'll take me directly to where that tag is in the template. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this last for each tag, this customer loop for each tag. And when I do that, you can see over here, it brought me all the way down to the last page and directly to this customer loop tag. So this can be very helpful when you're trying to locate a specific tag in your template. I'm going to expand this a little further just to see what's fully laid out in it. So in this section right here, this for each, what we have is our outer customer loop for each tag, which is connected to this end for each tag. Then we have an alt tag, company name alt tag. Right after that is another for each tag. This is our inner for each tag, which then will have a alt tag and then its own end for each. And then this last one again refers back to this customer loop. So here we have this outer for each loop, customer loop, and an inner for each loop right here, which is connected to that outer for each loop. And this is where we're going to talk about grouping. Usually when you click on any one of these items in the tag tree, down here below in this tag properties section, you would actually see the attributes and the query related to this tag. I found out that present in the webinar, this doesn't display for some reason. I'm looking into that. But if you were to look at this on your system, if you were on any one of these, you would see a quick snapshot right here of what's happening with this tag. Okay, but let's get back to the sample. And you can look at this on your own system once this webinar is over. Sorry about that. So what's actually going on here in our sample? So as I mentioned, we have an outer for each tag, and we want to group some data based on the company name. So I like to preview this customer loop right here just to see what it's returning. So here we have the customer ID and company name. Okay. They all seem to begin with A. Next thing, between this beginning and ending for each loop, these beginning and ending tags, is the company name alt tag. So let's go ahead and select that and preview it to see what we're returning. So here, yes, we're just returning the company name. Okay, next thing is another for each tag. This is our inner for each tag. Let's go ahead and preview this. And this is returning a little more information. Let me expand it. So this seems to be returning all of the orders that pertain to a specific customer. So let's say you have a list of company names that you want to see all of their orders for as it goes through the list. This is exactly what we're doing right here. All the orders for the customer ID. Now let's take a look at this alt tag, see what it's going to be displaying. I'm going to select it, click preview. So now here we're returning the order ID. We're just going to be displaying the order ID, nothing else. Even though we were bringing back quite a bit more information from this inner for each tag, we're only going to be displaying the order ID from it. Now, let's take a look at how this will look in the output. Go ahead and click output, say yes. Split the screen again. I'm going to close the tag tree, give it more space to see what we're talking about. Now, over here in output, I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. Here we go. This is where we're grouping the for each tags that we've been talking about. So we have our loop in the template over here. And over here in the right, you can see the results of the loop. Here we have the number 1, the company name, and then all of the orders that pertain to that company name. When we get to the last order, we move on to the next record. Here we have the 1 and the next record, and we'll continue, and we display the orders for that record, and we'll continue moving down, displaying the orders for each of the company name. When we display the last order, we'll go down to the next company. We'll continue all the way down until we run out of companies and orders. So let's look at this number 1 in the list and see how it's repeating for each one of these companies. This is where we're grouping orders under specific company names. I'll close this output. So how do we tie this inner for each loop to this outer customer for each loop so we can group orders? So I'm going to go ahead and select this outer for each tag for a moment. And I like to point out something up here. Variable. This outer for each tag has a variable name of var name 10. And this variable is what AutoTag uses to identify this for each loop. So let's remember this, var name 10 for this customer loop. Now let's go ahead and select this inner for each loop. With it selected, I'm going to come up here in the AutoTag tab, and I'm going to go ahead and select the wizard button. And this opens up our SQL wizard. Over here in the center are columns. These are all of the columns that we have that we're pulling data from based on the for each tag. I'm going to minimize this for the moment, as we're not going to focus on that just right now. So how do we tie that inner for each loop with the outer for each loop? And we do that through this filter section. So you can see that it's already set up for us right here. Go ahead and expand the tables and the orders over here on the left. So what we're doing is we're collecting the customer ID from the orders table. Then we're setting that equal to the value of the var name, the customer ID value of the var name 10. And remember, var name 10 was just the variable name for the customer loop. So since we have 2 primary keys with identical customer IDs, we can connect the inner for each loop to the outer for each loop. Now, if I click on this var name 10 customer ID and expand the drop down and expand this var name 10, this is all the things that I can connect to within this var name 10 loop. Here, we're just going to be using the customer ID. So that has been selected for us already. And so you may notice over here in the right, in the data tree plane, there is this first customer ID right here, the ALFKI, and then all of the orders that pertain to that customer ID. So this is how you connect the inner for each loop to your outer for each loop through this filter section. Okay, I'm going to generate the output one more time so we can see it again. Let's click output, yes to save, split the screen. Output here is on the right. Let's scroll all the way to the bottom for this example's output right here. Okay, I now want to explain what is actually happening when we generate output with the engine. Each auto tag has a small .NET engine built into it. So what's happening is our engine completely strips out the data from your template, collects that data, and then rebuilds from scratch, from top down, everything that's in your template. It shows the data that you wanted, and it displays it how you formatted it within your template. So what's happening here in this example, AutoTag is collecting all the data in the customer loop and all the data within the inner for each loop. It ties it together, and when it produces the output, it says, what's after this customer loop? And the first thing that it comes to is this numbered list and company name. Then what does it do? Then what does it do? It sees the inner for each loop. So it grabs that data and displays the out tag from this inner for each loop. And it'll do this for all the order IDs for this specific company name. It'll loop through showing everything between this inner beginning and inner ending for each tag, which is only the out tag. Then it'll go on to the next line once it completes all the orders, where it comes across this ending for each. This tells the engine to go back to the beginning of the outer for each loop, collect the next record, and repeat the process. Iterate through the loop, repeat the process for each company name that's being listed and all the order IDs. So this gives you an idea of how the engine is tearing down your template and rebuilding it from scratch after pulling all your data from your data source. So this is how you group your data using nested for each loops. Okay. Close this output. So the next thing I like to go over before leaving this sample is on the page above. Okay. This nested for each loop sample right here. So we've been creating for each tags using row-based formatting. We're now going to focus on how to create for each tags using column-based formatting. The for each tag can be used for the column major expansion. Let me show you how to do this. There are three things that are different when you want to create columns instead of rows. This example above, right up here, is typical when creating a row-based for each tag. Here you have your for each tag, you have your out tag for index, an out tag for count, an out tag for first iteration, an out tag for all these columns. Then outside of the table is your end for each tag. This is your normal setup for row-based for each loops. But in this next example, this column-based example, the end for each tag is actually inside this table. Well, let's go ahead and preview this for each tag to see what it's returning. Okay. Well, this for each tag is just returning our categories table. Kind of familiar with this now. We have the category ID, category name, description, and picture. Okay, what is this alt tag now going to display? Let's select it, preview it. So this alt tag is just returning the category name, beverages. Okay, let's close this. So instead of creating a list top down of the category names, we're going to create columns left to right across the page. So let's take a look at the output just to see what it looks like. Click output. I'm going to scroll down to our column-based example. Split the screen, and you can see it right here. So instead of going top down, we're going left to right, expanding the table, creating new columns based upon the records that are in this for each loop. Okay, also, when you place an end for each tag within a table, it should typically create a blank new row at the very end of the list. But we're not seeing that blank row here in the output. Let's look at why. Let's go ahead and close this output. Go back to our template. So there's a couple of ways to edit a tag. You can either go ahead and double click on a tag, or you can click the edit tag button up here in the auto tag tab within this tag section. So I'm going to go ahead and select this end for each tag and then click on edit tag. Okay, which this will open up our tag editor and gives us a couple of tabs here, the query and the properties. So the end for each tag is not used to query anything. It's just used to tell AutoTag when to stop looping through the data and repeating the elements. Now, within the properties tags, there's a property that I like to point out. There's this delete row attribute. And this attribute right now is set to true. So this is why when actually not showing that last blank row. Now, if I was to turn this off just by double clicking that true, changing it to false, click save, what is our output going to look like now? Let's go ahead and see. Click output. Split the screen. And let's scroll down to this example to see if there's now a blank row. Here we go. Before, we didn't have this blank row, but now we do. Just because we turn that property, delete row, for our end for each tag to false. So the last thing that you need to do is to change the property of the value for the for each tag to create columns when you want to create column expansion instead of rows. So I'm going to go ahead and double click this for each tag to open up the tag editor. There we go. So this window is a bit more robust than what you would have seen in the tag tree at that bottom section. In here, we have a preview button. I can click on that to see the data that we're returning: category ID, category name, picture, description. Yes. To the right of that is a wizard button, just like the button on the auto tag tab. This, I can click to see my SQL wizard. To the right of that is the equation button, which I'll show you a little later, that adds an equation to the tag. Then there's the next and previous buttons, which takes you to the respective tags without actually exiting the tag editor. Very handy. On the left, just like in the data bin, there's our tables, our views, and our stored procedures that we have access to. On the right is our query window. Now, your query window is probably white. If you click within the window, right-click within the window, there's this color scheme option. I'm using base 16 ocean dark. What is normal is that plain option. Going back to the tabs, I'm gonna click on this properties tab. And here, within here, for each tag, there's a bunch of different type of properties. There's advanced properties, there's standard properties, and there's also tag properties. What I like to focus on is this order attribute right here in the tag property, and it's set to column. Now, if I click on this drop-down list, the arrow, excuse me, it shows us the drop-down list. Here you have choices of legacy, row, and column. Legacy is what you use by default. Legacy isn't much different than row. Legacy is just the original way we built the tag. The row attribute does a little more. If you want to delete a row with the end for each, you'll have to use this option. In our wiki page, there's more info on how legacy is different from row. But since we're expanding not by rows, but by columns, we'll want columns set for order. So with columns selected, I'm gonna go ahead and click Save Tag. And as you can see, the output here, it displays here with the blank last row. So let's go ahead and change this back to remove this last blank row. I'm gonna go ahead and double click this End for Each tag to open the tag editor. I'm gonna go to the Properties tab, and I'm gonna change this Delete Row Property Attribute back to True. Click Save. We have this blank row here. Before we made that change, I'm gonna close the output. Let's generate another one. Okay, and now since we changed that back to delete the row, we should not see that extra blank row. And yep, right here, we do not see that blank row. So 3 things. Make sure your for each tag is set to columns, and the end for each tag is within the table, and the delete row attribute is set to true. All right. Let's go back to our slides for a moment. We talked about legacy, rows, columns, those being the different for each types. We talked about the delete row attribute, which deletes the row where the end for each tag is placed. like to now discuss that equation editor, the equation button. We have over 50 equations or functions available for you to use. Let's go ahead and take a look at some. I have a sample template that I'm going to open for this equation. It opened on my other screen, so I'm just going to go ahead and drag it over. All right, so here we're going to add a sum function to create a total of the sales amounts for the list of the sales people. So you can see here, I already have my sales table created. We have a for each tag. We have a alt tag for the salesperson, alt tag for a number of calls, alt tag for lead generated, and the alt tag for the sales amount. And then we have our end for each tag outside of the table. Now, before we do anything, let's take a look at our sales loop. Again, I preview a lot just to make sure we're always working with the correct data. Select that, go over to auto tag, and click preview. So what's it going to be returning? So it looks like we're returning the same things that we're showing in the alt tag: the salesperson, call numbers, lead generated, and sales amount. Okay. Now, before we add that sum function, I want to show you how to display red text for salespeople who may not be meeting quota. This may be something you need to do to format something in a specific way. So I'm going to double click on this sales amount alt tag to open up our tag editor. I'm going to expand on this var1 variable in this data tree pane, and this var1 is associated is the variable name for this for each sales loop. Okay, I'm going to open up the properties tab. Now down here in this tag section, let me expand this just a little more. There's this condition property. And as you can see, there's already equation set up for us. I'm going to go ahead and click on this ellipsis at the end of the line, which opens up our conditional formatting rule manager. So whenever you want to add an equation or whenever you want to evaluate data, you want to begin with an equal sign, which we have right here. So our conditions right now begins with an equal sign because we want to evaluate data. And then we have the $sign, the curly brackets, the var name 1, which refers to this sales loop. We're going to be using the sales amount, and we're checking if it's under 8,000. Okay, now that our equation is built, what if we want to format it in a certain way? If I know the formatting code, I can enter the syntax right here in this format field, or I can click on the wizard button, which opens up the format options window. So here you have an option to format by italicizing the text, bolding it, underlining it, striking through, changing the color, changing the background color. And since we're working with a table right here, we also have cell format options where you can format the line style, the line color of the border. You can change the cell color. You can change the alignment. But I'm going to go back to this text tab, because in this example, we're just going to be changing the color of the text to red for those sales amounts less than 8,000. So here we've entered in the hex code in this text color field, and this hex code is for the color red. Unfortunately, we don't have a color palette right now. That's something we want to add as an option. But right now, you would have to enter in the hex code. 2 F's and 4 zeros represent the color red. If there was a specific color you wanted, you could Google it and could get the hex code format that way, or through possibly your marketing department. All right, but since all we want to do right now is format the color of the text red, let's go ahead and click OK, which here you can see our formatting right here. Foreground color, red, FF000. So if you wanted to add another rule, you could do that very easily just by clicking Add Rule. You could also delete a rule just as easy, clicking on this Delete button. But this is all we want to do, all the conditional formatting that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Let's save this tag. And now I'm going to click on Output just so we can see what this conditional formatting will look like. I'll split the screen. Also going to go and turn off, there we go, this formatting. We don't really need it right now. So here you can see any sales amount that is less than $8,000 is now displayed in red. So this is one way to conditionally format an alt tag for output. Okay, close that. So let's go ahead now and add our sum functions. So what if we wanted to total all the sales amounts within this table? How do we do that? Well, we'll need to create a new row in our table underneath this first row. So I'm going to go ahead and select this and for each tag, come up here and delete it. Now I want to add a new row. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this plus button, which adds a new row. Now I'm going to do something what I told you not to do earlier when it comes to row-based templates. And since this is row-based templates, as we're going to be moving top down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add our end for each tag inside the table. So I'm going to go ahead and place my cursor right here in the second row in this leftmost column. Go up to the tags button and select the end for each. All right, now I want to add some text here. Give me an indication of what we're going to be displaying. Let's go ahead and just put it as total, as that's what we're going to want to see. Again, we're using Word, so we can use a lot of Word functionality. So let's go ahead and format this a little bit and go up to the Home tab. Let's go ahead and bold this, and let's also right align it. All right, great. So now we want to add an alt tag underneath the sales amount, which will display the total, the sum of all the sales amounts. Go back to the Auto Tag tab, click on the Tags button, and add an alt tag. Okay, now with that's there, let's go ahead and double click this alt tag to open up the tag editor. And this time we're going to add a sum function. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this equation button, which opens up our insert function window. Here we have some categories you can choose. We got date and time, math and trig, statistical, database, text, logical, and custom. For this example, since we're going to be summing up, it's under the math and trig. I'm going to select that. This is in alphabetical order, so let's scroll down and find our sum function, which is right here. Go ahead and select that. And when you do, you can notice right underneath that, there's a description of the function that we've just selected. So the sum function, as it says here, will add all the numbers in a range of values. Okay, I want to go with this one, so I'm going to select OK. And now this will open up our function arguments window. Here we have our equation. Remember, equations always start with an equal sign to evaluate, which it has already done for us. There's our sum function and nothing between the parentheses. So let's go ahead and add to this equation. What are we going to sum up? So we can enter in the number 1 field what we want to sum, or we can click this wizard button, which I'm going to do right now. And by doing that, this opens up the SQL wizard. All right, expand the tables, and I'm going to expand our sales table, since that's what we're working with right here. So in order to sum up the sales amount, all you need to do is drag that column, the sales amount column, to the actual 2 columns. Just like that. There we go. Now in the data preview pane, we have all our sales amount. This is exactly what we want to sum up. That's all you need to do, is just drag the sales amount into the columns. We click OK. And now you'll notice to the right of this number 1 field is the first value that's being returned. Down here, there's also the grand total. Not formatted, but it is there for you. Now, if you look up here, our sum function has data in it. It has the SQL select query that we just worked with, where we're selecting the sales amount from the sales table. It's exactly what we want to see. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Here's our query that we built through the equation editor in the query tab. I'm going to click Save Tab. And since we're going to be printing out a number value, let's format this data. So I'm going to go ahead and select this alt tag, the sales total alt tag. And I'm going to click on this Format Data button up here. So just like in Excel, we can click on currency. We can confirm or change the number of decimal places. We can make sure we want the negative numbers displaying as we want. This is what we're looking for. So we can apply it. We can close it. And let's also now bold this grand total amount. To make sure we're bolding the whole value, I'm going to come up here, click on the Select Tag button to select this whole tag. Go over to Home, and let's bold it. All right. Now let's go ahead and generate the output, see what we're working with. Auto tag, output. Yes to save. Split the screen. All right, so here's our table over here on the right with our extra row. Since we added this N for each tag within the table, it's giving us this blank row, but we now utilize that blank row by adding the grand total for these sales amounts. Great sample for showing how to conditionally format the text for certain values, and also adding a sum function, one of the many functions within the equation editor that you can actually utilize. Okay, let's go back to the Auto Tag Manager tab. Okay, we'll see the time. Sorry, running a little slow. I'm going to get through this, but just may go a little quick right now. But if you do have any questions, again, please feel free to reach out through the chat or questions. All right. Next thing I want to show you is the if and case tags. We'll start with the if tag. I'm going to go up here, click on the samples button, and I'm going to open up this if tag tutorial, which is right here, first row, fifth. And again, we'll be using just the SQL. And what we're going to take a look at, and what we're going to look at right now is this first example right here. If, out, if. Now, the if tag is perfect when you want to show or hide specific elements within your template based on some condition within your data. So I'm going to go ahead and select this if tag, which is going to evaluate. Sorry. So I'm going to select this if tag, this first one. And this is going to evaluate what's in this if tag. And if it's true, then we're going to display everything between the beginning and ending if tags, which is this alt tag. If this if tag is false, it's going to skip over everything between this beginning and ending if tag, and then carry on displaying everything that comes after it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this beginning if tag. What data are we actually evaluating here? So if it's selected, I'm going to preview it. Okay, so in this if tag, we're evaluating if 1 is less than 2. This is a simple evaluation. Since 1 is less than 2, it's going to return true. So this means that we're going to display this alt tag right here. If it was false, it would have skipped this alt tag and gone on to the next thing after this end for each tag. End if tag. And close this preview. Now let's look at the alt tag. What are we actually going to display since this if tag is true? I'm going to select it, preview it. So this right here is just providing text that states 1 is less than 2. Okay. Let's take a look at the output. See what this looks like. Split the screen. So here, yeah, we're just displaying the simple text in blue, 1 is less than 2. Okay, now let's look at our next example. This output right here, in this next example, is indicating that 3 is less than or equal to 4. So why is this showing right here? So if I preview this if tag, all we're doing here is evaluating if 3 is greater than 4. Of course, 3 is not greater than 4, so it's evaluating to false. Since this first if tag is evaluating to false, auto tag is going to skip this first alt tag and move to this else tag. It will then provide you everything after the else tag all the way to this ending if tag. And right now, this is just a simple alt tag, but it could be used to show us hide anything, information based on state. Say you want to, California needs to display more information than maybe Illinois. You can use an if tag to, if it's California state, display more information. If it isn't, don't display that. So it doesn't matter what comes between the if and end if tags. We're just going to show or hide certain elements of your template based on this conditional format. So if we preview this out tag right here after this else tag, this out tag, yep. This out tag just contains the text that reads 3 is less than or equal to 4, as this if tag is evaluating to false. So if this first if tag was to evaluate to true, we would be displaying this out tag, which would only display text 3 is greater than 4. So that is the if tag. You'll want to use the if tag if you just have 1 or 2 conditions or choices that you want to evaluate. But what if you have 3 or more conditions that you want to evaluate? You could use nested if tags, which you see right here, where we have an if tag, an else tag, another if tag, an else tag, and a bunch of closing if tags. But we would actually suggest using the switch case tags. So let's go ahead and take a look at our switch case tags sample. Let's close that output. And I do notice that it's the top of the hour. We're almost done with this. I would like to just continue on to give you the rest of the information. Okay, so I'm going to click on the samples button, opens up our getting started guide again. There's a couple samples for our switch tags right here. Switch tag and switch tags. I'm going to go ahead and select the second one as it gives more of what we're looking for. So here we have another table containing customer information. I'm going to preview this customer for each tag just to see what we're returning. Auto tag preview. So here we're bringing back quite a bit of information: customer ID, title, first name, middle name, last name, suffix, and so forth. Here we're going to be displaying the first name, the last name, the address, the city, the state, and the postal codes. So over here in our country column, this is where the switch tag has been added. So all the switch tag does is it just tells auto tag when to start evaluating case tags. So here we have our beginning switch tag and our ending switch tag, and then in the middle of everything, which is a slightly lighter shade of red, are our case tags. So this case tag is evaluating the country. It's seeing if it belongs to Canada. If it does, then display the Canadian flag. Then let's go ahead and double click on this Canada case tag to see actually what we're evaluating. When I double click on it, it opens up the tag editor. So here we have our equal sign, var1, and this is just referring to this customers for each loop. We want to look at the country region name for that customer loop and check if it's equal to Canada. And if it does equal Canada, display the Canadian flag. Well, then it'll do this for the rest of the countries. And if it comes across a country where it does equal, it'll display that flag. And as soon as it meets one of the criteria in the cases, it's going to exit the switch, move on to the next item in the list, which is this ending for each tag, and loop through again, showing the specific flag for the next customer record. Let's look at the output to just see what it's going to show us. Split the screen. So here, the first record in the list is John Yang, and he has an Australian flag. If we scroll down on the output, we can see that other people Lauren Walker from Washington has the American flag. We'll see Canadian flags, more American flags, Australian flags, and so forth. So that is the switch tag. And I have one more sample I'd like to show you. So it'll be a quick one. And this is the input tag. Click on the samples button. We have 3 input tag samples. Here we have input tag HTML, and input tag image. I'm going to go ahead and select this first one as it gives us a little of everything. So in this example right here, looks like we're importing an image. We're going to import a PDF. You can import a docx, a text, HTML page, some of the different things that you can import. Let's look at the output. All right. Split the screen again. So just want to point out that what you see here in the template, this right here, this is just an image preview. This is actually a tag. So if I was to double click this, it'll open up the tag editor and you can see the path to this Windward 2 PNG file that's being returned. So it's just showing you the preview of the image in the template so you can see the image size and layout before you output. One thing you may have noticed is that there's no additional content right here for the PDF input. So the only way that you can import PDF is by outputting to PDF. So if we were to output to PDF instead of to Word, this would display the PDF import right here. So anytime you're trying to import PDF, you have to output to PDF. Okay, I'm sorry, went over a little late. Let's just get back to the slides. Make sure I didn't miss anything. I showed you the if tag and how it evaluates when it's true. It shows everything between the beginning and ending if tags. If you have multiple evaluations or conditions that you're trying to check against, for instance, 3 or more, you'll want to use the switch tag. All right, you may want to take a screenshot of this while we're here. Here are some resources that you can utilize. If you want to look up anything from our knowledge base, you can do this on our wiki at wiki.windward.net. We're actually revamping it completely. You'll see a new wiki come out in the next few months. If you can't find what you're looking for, you can reach out to our amazing support team at support@windward.net, or there's a new way to access that. That's through windwardstudios.com/user-center. Or you could also email them at support@windward.net. So if you have a question that you can't find an answer to, go ahead and contact our support team. If you need to retrieve your keys, you can do that at store.windward.net. And if you want any changes or have any feature requests that you want added to the engine auto tag, you can do this at ideas.windward.net. All right. Well, quick Q&A session right here. I'm going to take a look and see if there's been any questions asked. I'll answer those right now. Please note that there will be a survey at the end of the webinar. Please feel free to fill it out as truthfully as you can think of. Any feedback that you can provide will help me and the attendees with the next webinar. I do have one question that was asked. Let me go have a moment to read it just to become familiar with it. Okay. Can you use multiple equations at once? Yeah, yes, yeah, good question. Yes, yes, you can. Let's see. Let's go ahead and open up this and bring up this equation that we used earlier. Okay, we used the equation button to create this equation. You can have multiple equations here within multiple equation functions here within the query window. If you were to do that, you can't use the equation editor to create two equations, but you can use the equation editor to understand the syntax for how to set up two functions. Had a ticket submitted to me where somebody needed to concatenate 2 bits of data from their XML file, and then after that was concatenated, they need to encode it for URL. So what I had them do is I had them come here as a way to learn it, use the concatenation and concatenate a couple of things to get an idea. Let's just put anything up here. Actually, we only want to concatenate one thing. Let's delete this. I'm going to remove it. Okay, I want to concatenate that with we're in the orders, customer, drag that over. So here we'll be concatenating 2 things. We're going to concatenate first the order amount from the orders, and then we'll concatenate the customers from the orders. Click OK. So this gives us our first equation right here on how to do it. So here's the first set that we're going to concatenate right here, and then here's the second one. So with this format, that taught me how to concatenate. Then from here, then all I did was I saved that off on the side as this is my internal concatenation. I deleted it. I went up here to the equation editor. I went with the URL encode. Clicked OK, which gave us my second one, and then I just pasted in the second function within the first function. So you can put together multiple functions within your tag editor. You do need to do that though more manually. You can use the equation editor to get the syntax for each function, but then you would have to manually do it. Good question, really good question. That was the only question that I had today that was asked. So I just want to say thank you for joining today. Hope this was informative for you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye now.